moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Healing Moments, the interactive program, where you, the audience, get to interact with us, the presenters. This afternoon, we do have Sister Sherry Sobers on. Unfortunately, we don't have Elder Blenman here to give us the prayer. So let's all bow our heads for a word of prayer. Our merciful and wonderful Father, we thank you for this evening where we can come together for this moment of healing. We ask that as we go forward, may whatever is said here be a blessing not only to us, but to each and every one, those on Zoom and those on YouTube. For this is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. This evening's devotion is entitled Worship. And it says, do you know that God cares deeply about your emotions? Your Heavenly Father longs for your life to be marked by emotional joy, fulfillment, satisfaction, and peace. He longs for your emotions to be rooted and grounded in His steadfast love and goodness. Our God is an emotional God. He is not void of feelings. We feel because He feels. We have emotions because we are made in His image. For much of my Christian life, I thought my emotions had to be based on my circumstances. I felt happy or sad based on others' opinions, the pressures of life and opportunities I had or didn't have. As a result, I was on a constant emotional roller coaster, following the ups and downs of this shaky world. I found myself controlled by the things of the world rather than the foundation of love laid before me by the sacrificial love of Jesus. Scriptures continually describes a link between emotional health and trust. Isaiah 26, 3 and 4 says, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord God is an everlasting rock. Psalms 56, 3 and 4 says, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? And Psalms 33:21 says, for our heart is glad in him, because we trust in his holy name. We are robbed of having our emotions rooted in God whenever we take on more pressure than we are meant to carry. Our emotional health is directly linked to our level of trust. We feel pressure at work when we look at our job and co-workers for our provision, identity, purpose, and fulfillment. We feel pressure in our relationships when our worth isn't based on God's perspective, but the opinions of others. We are robbed of peace when we try and plan our own steps rather than following our good shepherd into the green pastures and still waters. In John 14:27, Jesus says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. God's heart is fill you with peace. He longs for you to have all the fruit of the Spirit dwelling within you. He has constant peace available to you, but you must trust him in every area of your life. You must hand over the reins of your relationships, job, identity, and plans to your good shepherd. You must trust that he will guide you perfectly into an abundant life. Look to your Heavenly Father for peace. Find rest in his abundant love. Find your self-worth in the fact that God so desired relationship with you that he laid down his own life to have it. Your Father counts you worthy of the death of his only son. Trust him today. Place your entire life in his capable hands and experience abundant life in the area of your emotions, rooting and grounding yourself in his unconditional, available love. May your life be marked by increasing emotional health as you grow in trust.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Welcome back to Healing Moments. Those of you on YouTube and those of you on Zoom, welcome. We are glad to have you with us today, and we still have time to get those who are not on Healing Moments on. So call a friend, tell someone. Now, this afternoon, we have Sister Sherry Sobers with the mental aspect of our program. Sister Sherry.
Thank you so much, Sis Kathy. And good evening, everyone. I'm really happy to be able to join you this evening. Last week, I had a break. I was able to sit back and listen. This week, I'm here and we are with a new topic. And as you can see behind me, I'm not sure how much you can see, but it is called emotional well-being. Now, as we near the end of the year, there is one common thread in all of the topics that we have been doing from the time we started Healing Moments. And that is that they all have to do, especially on the mental health side, well, in the physical as well, they all have to do with the mind and the feelings and emotions that the different topics evoke. For example, we talked about depression, we talked about grief, trauma, self-esteem, to name a few. And one of the things I always like to say that distinguishes us human beings from others as plant life and animal life has to do with our ability to manage what we are feeling. The ability to experience and express emotions is really more important than we realize. So we thought that for the remaining of the year, that we would focus on these important things, our emotions and our feelings. Hence the topic, emotional well-being. Simply put, emotions, I have a really nice definition that I would like you to hear, and it's very simple. Emotions are the felt response to a given situation, and they play a part in our reactions. So for example, you inherit a lot of money from a relative that dies. Unfortunate, yes, the relative dies, but you inherit a lot of money. You feel happy and well, about the inheritance. And you may do a jiggle, you may do a dance, you may even cry, because these may be tears of happiness. You may be thinking of all the things you can do with the money that you have, and you may express your emotion through tears. But what about if you lose a family member? You may also express those emotions through tears. When you're in tune with your emotions, you have access to important knowledge that helps you with a few things. For example, decision-making, relationship success, our day-to-day interactions with persons that we come into contact with, whether at home or at work. And more importantly, self-care. When we are in tune with our emotions, we know what we are feeling, and we know how to take care of self based on the emotion that we are feeling. Now, while emotions can be very helpful in our day-to-day life, they can really take a toll on our emotional health and interpersonal relationships, especially when they start to get out of control. We know what we are talking about. There's a therapist called Vicki Brotnick, and she explains that any emotion, even elation, which is beyond happiness, joy, and others that we would typically view as positive, can intensify to a point where they become difficult to control, difficult to manage. But with a little practice, we can pull back the reins and find the balance. And there are two studies that highlight two important things that deal with emotions. Number one, having emotional regulation skills is linked to well-being. And the second found a potential link between these skills and financial success. And this is the one that I really found important. It seems to suggest that emotional well-being improves productivity at work. If we are emotionally stable, we are able to focus on our work and focus on being productive. Now, as we move along there are certain terms, certain concepts that I'll bring to mind. The first one I wish to introduce now, and that is called emotional intelligence. And believe it or not, just as we have academic intelligence, we also have emotional intelligence. And this concept was made popular by an American psychologist by the name of Daniel Goleman. And he coined the term EQ, emotional quotient. Just like, I'm sure you've heard of IQ, intelligence quotient. It is the emotional aspect of it is very similar. And it speaks to the fact that when we are aware of our emotions, when we have the ability to identify, but not just identify these emotions, but manage them, and not only ours, but we are able to identify and manage, if possible, the emotions of others, but especially identify the emotions of others, we have a high EQ or a high emotional intelligence. It generally includes some skills. For example, as I spoke about before, being emotionally aware, being emotionally present, knowing what you are feeling, the ability to identify and name your emotion, the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to the task like thinking and problem solving, and the ability to manage the emotions. And that's an important one. It also includes regulating one's emotion, and anything that regulates is one that finds balance. And when necessary, helping other people to do the same who may not be able to regulate their emotions. According to Goleman, there are 5 key elements to emotional intelligence. He speaks of self-awareness, which is having an understanding of self. He speaks of self-regulation, which is, as we spoke about before, finding the balance, keeping the scales balanced. He also spoke about motivation, having that inner drive, empathy, having an understanding of others. We spoke about having an understanding of self, but emotional intelligence goes beyond self, but it also includes others, as well as social skills, having the ability to interact positively and healthily within society. Now let's take a look at the impact of all these emotions: happiness, sadness, disappointment, all of them. And to be honest, when we think about it, intense emotions aren't bad. It has to do with how we are able to manage and control them. The psychologist that I spoke about earlier said emotions make our lives unique and vibrant, exciting. Strong feelings can signify that we embrace life fully, that we are not repressing our natural emotions, our natural reactions. It's perfectly normal to experience some kind of overwhelm. I know, you know, we all know that from time to time, a specific emotion may choose to stay longer than we want it to, and we become overwhelmed. It can be for example, when something wonderful happens, but most of the time we see it more, we feel it more when something terrible happens and you feel like you are out of sorts, as we would say. But we feel because we are human. I like that. We feel because we are human. That's normal. But then there is the flip side, the other side, where the problems reside, when we are not able to manage, when we're not able to regulate, when we're not aware for self, when we're not aware for others, when we misrepresent, when we miscommunicate, and all of those things, therefore become problems. Emotions that regularly get out of hand might lead to things like relationship or friendship conflict. I say something, you interpret it differently based on whatever you are feeling, and there is conflict, difficulty relating to others. We have all at some point known of someone who thinks that the world revolves around them. We call them the narcissist. Those persons who, for them, it is all, they make everything about themselves. They have this sense for attention. And when they are not able to get it, they turn on the other person or persons. We may have trouble at work or at school. You know, you may feel sidelined at work, but it may just be because whatever you may have suggested or whatever may have happened, whereas you may think of it, you may reach out there and become vulnerable, and others may not really agree, but then you may take it personally. Or at school, we know that children sometimes, when they are going through their own challenges, they're not able to, because some of them may be immature and they cannot own or identify their feelings. So they may be sad, but it comes out in anger, and that they're not able to manage that anger. For those who may turn to the use and abuse of substances, to help manage their emotions. What they may not realize is that in the idea of wanting to drink away their problems, what they're really doing is drinking away all their money. So things like that. Then we have those who may experience physical or emotional outbursts. We have the controlling husband or boyfriend who is excessively protective and creates scenarios in their mind when you are, for example, not home within your usual time. His only reaction is a physical outburst, which sometimes is followed by a very romantic gesture, and you have that up and down. So these are just a few examples of what happens when our emotions are left unchecked. And as we go through the weeks, we'll discuss more about emotions, emotional intelligence, and there's another concept that I'll share with you next week, and again with emotions. But as I leave, I, as usual, want to leave you with a quote. And this quote says, "Your emotions make you human. Even the unpleasant ones have a purpose. Don't lock them away. Don't lock them away. If you ignore them, they just get louder and angrier." I want you to remember that. Feel your emotions within a safe space. Understand how you manage, regulate, be aware, help others. And in so doing, we are able to grow and develop from one step to the next. Thank you very much and have a good evening. I listen for your comments as well as discussion later in the show. Kathy, over to you.
Once again, we look forward for your comments and our discussion on emotional well-being. We ask that those of you on YouTube who have questions, you can place those in the chat box and we will answer those questions as well for you. Those of you here on Zoom, you just type your questions into the chat and those questions will be asked. We look forward to hearing those questions for you, but we will take a short break and we will be back in a few seconds.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
We want to thank each and every one of you for staying with us. Those of you on Zoom and YouTube who came in a little bit late, welcome to the show. And again, you still have time to call someone and tell them that Healing Moments is on. We are into our question and answer segment, and we have questions in the chat. Here we go. I have met so many persons who seemingly function well in their jobs and sometimes family, but mostly not at home. And it's so hard to get them to deal with their unwell being. How do we help them?
So I guess all these questions are for me this evening. Yes, it is unfortunate that there are individuals like that, where they are, the perfect colleague, perfect employee or employer, and but at home it would appear as if they are not able to balance, or they are not able to, they are just different. And sometimes it takes drawing the scenario to them, if they are open to hear, if they are open to see things from the other person's perspective, and show them where, in the case of a scenario, they could do things differently. Sometimes it takes an independent person, for example, a counselor, therapist, someone in the mental health profession who can walk them through the ways in which they can try to bring balance at home. Sometimes some persons don't realize it, that they give their all to the job, and then at home their family members feel, for want of a better word, neglected or sidelined or second place and things like that. And in that case, it is always good to approach it from not in a confrontational manner, but in just letting the person know, this is what you're experiencing, this is what you are feeling. And it's always good in terms of the way how you communicate those feelings, where instead of using you words like you are doing this or whatever, you let the person know how you feel. I feel as if there is not enough time, that we don't spend enough time together. I feel as if things like that. So there are, and it's a work in progress. So it is something that if the person is in tune to allowing themselves to be vulnerable and allowing the other person to share, then it can be very therapeutic in the way in which it is done, especially through a mental health professional.
Okay, next question. And yes, these questions are all for you this evening. It says, what steps can a business do to assess its emotional well-being of its staff? What steps can a business do to assess its emotional well-being of its staff?
Okay, so through the HR department, there are various organizations that help businesses, organizations to work on the emotional aspect, the emotional intelligence of their employees. It may take training sessions, it may take, we've had, before COVID, we would have done team building exercises, but it is something that the manager and the HR department can work on. There is an organization that I cannot remember the name right now, but if I find the name, I will share it. But that's a local organization where they come in, they do team building activities, exercises, so that, and it's all relating to social and emotional learning and emotional EQ, emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, helping organizations build that camaraderie among staff members, understanding that those soft skills are just as important as being able to manage accounts and do reception work and manage person. That's, in fact, that's all a part of managing your business.
Is there a way to see from looking on that a person's emotional well-being is compromised?
Is there a way
to see from looking on that a person's emotional well-being is compromised?
What I would say off the top, from looking on, you would have to be looking on at something that they are doing. You would have to be looking on, you would have to be a spectator in either something that they are doing or their reaction to something, to some situation, some event. You just can't look at a person and see anything about them. Whether you can't even look at someone and see what nationality they are, or if they speak English, unless they start to speak. So they have to start to do something. They have to be in the act of either interacting or engaging with another person or persons for you to be able to have an idea. And even then, you run the risk of taking that one scenario and creating or building a portfolio about someone based on not based on enough information. So it is rather risky and borders on judgmental if you are going to take one scenario or one situation and place a label on someone, and without digging deeper, without knowing the person, without knowing the situation. You know, sometimes we come in at the end, we hear things at the end of conversations, and we take that information and we run with it. But it's not healthy, it's not helpful, and it's not positive in the way how we interact and work with everyone. So, you know, it raises a red flag, and it lends me to say, just be careful, just be cautious.
Okay. Is there a specific test to measure emotional intelligence?
Yes, there is. At the moment, I It's not coming to me, but yes, there is. Anything can be measured. Anything can be measured. So yes, there are tests, in fact, that measure emotional intelligence. Then therefore, you read heights, you read along a spectrum.
Okay. My spouse needs help, but won't admit it. She needs healing, but thinks she's fine. What do I do? She is always right, and I don't aggravate her. What should I do?
My spouse needs help, but wouldn't admit it. That's a conversation to have, but that's where beyond the mental health, there's also the spiritual aspect. And if there is someone who based on past experience, based on information you have on the person, because you obviously, if it's a spouse, it's some person that you've been dealing with, it's always good. And I always say, you can't, because there are times when you may reach out and speak to persons, and but you may get a wall. Sometimes you get a wall, and but in that case, then I always say, when you can't speak to someone one-on-one, go to God and speak to God about that person. Ask God to show you what to do. It may be that you may think that and don't feel, don't be trying to find the word. The simplest way I can say is, don't feel bad. Don't be upset. Don't take it personal if you're not the person who can reach that person. If it takes another person, because sometimes it's not the way in which we can do things, but it is just the way how someone else may be able to do something, and they may lean and they may feel more comfortable talking. But at the end of the day, getting the healing for the person is important. Whether it is you as a spouse, or whether it's a friend, whether it is a family member, whether it is a close co-worker. At the end of the day, it is all about letting someone get in so that that person can get help.
Okay, Gail, I see your hands raised. You can unmute and ask your question. Gail? Okay, until she gets her mic unmuted.
Okay, she's there.
Yes, I thought I had to unmute myself. I don't know how to describe my emotional health. I know it is not well, but I try. Now, one, you're dealing with the mental state of COVID. Then I had a stroke. It left me now with a very painful hand. In the day, it don't hurt, but at night, it hurt. It literally disturbed my sleep and wake me up in the pain. The thing about this hand is, if I lay down, it go back to sleep, that even all the fingers feel numb, and if you touch them, they feel sore. But if I sit up at the edge of the bed, the pain goes away and the numbness. I don't know how it works out. It is disturbing my, what you would call, body rhythm. And I think that sometimes got me feel like depressed. Half the day go by and you feel like you accomplished nothing. And then you tell yourself tomorrow you can do better. But you're following the same pattern every day. You just feel like emotionally drained. Sometimes I put on sermons and different things. You try so many things to make you feel better. But it's like if you live in this depressive environment, and sometimes I find it challenging. That's the actual, that's how my life feels right now.
Thank you so much, Gail, for sharing. It must have taken a lot for you to express yourself to us. And I could hear in your voice the pain, the emotional pain. You know, I will, and a lot of things are going through my mind, were going through my mind as I was listening to you. Emotionally, yes, you seem to be going through a roller coaster, or you may seem as if you're in a tunnel right now where everything is dark and you're not sure what's happening and everything is not going the way you expected it to go. And but one thing I realize is that you are, even though you may be in that tunnel, or even though you may be down, you are reaching out for help. And this is one way of reaching out for help. I would say to you, though, that while I applaud and I appreciate, and I'm really grateful that you shared with us, it sounds to me like you need some more one-on-one. So if you care to, in a way where it is private, you can leave your information, even if it is just an email address, and we can contact you. Because, you know, the one thing about our emotions and our emotional well-being, and one thing about this life and growing and developing, is that nothing is a light switch that turns on and off. As much as things develop gradually in the positive, they also develop gradually in the negative. So to undo and to help you manage and to help you cope, there are some skills that you would need to know and to have and to use and to apply. So so this much I will say to you, that as much as I hear your pain, and as much as I can't understand for sure the whole gamut of what you are feeling, I would hope that you would, in reaching out to us, that you would, if you get the opportunity to have that professional help, so that you can help to manage and to cope. Sometimes these things are not, they develop in terms of the physical, but they also play on the emotional as well as the psychological. So as you would have expressed to us the physical in terms of the stroke, and we see how it ties in, how it plays a part with the psychological and the emotional as well. So as if you are really, really serious about your healing, and I hear it in your voice, I would impress upon you, leave information where we can contact you, and we will see how we can move forward in engaging with you. Thank you so much, Gail, for sharing.
Okay, Gail, you can unmute and speak again.
All right. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Sister Dupree has my number, so I'll let her exchange it with you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can any and every type of intelligence be improved? Isn't intelligence genetic?
There is a genetic part, DNA, yes, like everything, but there is also there is a nature and nurture. What we learn within our society, what we are exposed to. So my answer to that would be yes. Any intelligence can be improved. Any intelligence can be improved.
Okay. My boss cries every time we have a team meeting, and the budget seems difficult to balance. Do I need to help her see someone, or is that okay behavior?
Again, without having enough information, who is to say that the boss is crying because of the difficulty balancing the budget. Again, we don't want to, it can be that, yes, but it can be that it triggers the accounting aspect, triggers the fact that the boss lost their dad, and the dad was a fantastic accountant. And, before, the dad was the person that did the accounts. So who is to say that that's not the reason, that's not a trigger, that's not a grief trigger for that boss? So, but yes, we need to help. And the first thing to help, the first area in helping would be to find the backstory, as I call it, get the bigger picture, and work with that. It may not be you, the individual, to work with it, but again, just get the backstory.
All right. My coworker who is married hits on me every day. I ignore him, but could he have a poor emotional well-being? I feel bad when I brush him off. I feel like he is reaching out, but he is married. I know his family well, so I can't help him out. What should I do?
Again, this coworker may be reaching out, as the person said, and maybe, so there's some people who they want to be a friend, but they don't know how to be a friend, and they do things that may be considered by the other person as inappropriate. But if we find time to get to know that person, we may realize, whereas you may think this is the way that they're reacting or they're acting towards you that way, singling you out, but then you may realize they're doing it with another person. So it is not necessarily anything special about you. And I use that word special in quotation. It may just be that person is that person's way of interacting with others, and may not be a healthy, or may not be, I don't want to use the word healthy, but may not be appropriate, but maybe based on something in their past, that is the only way they know how to. So that's where empathy comes in. Seeing, understanding others, seeing the picture from their end, and not just what you think it should be because of who you are, your background, your lifestyle, your childhood, your upbringing. We bring a lot to our interactions. We bring all of those things, and we also bring our biases.
Okay. If someone is too frank or too truthful, does that person have a low EQ?
If some person is too frank or too truthful, that has nothing to do
too truthful.
with IQ. EQ, sorry. I thought it was right. It has nothing to do with
EQ. Yes.
Sorry, I shouldn't say it has nothing. It has little to do with EQ, but more to deal with how they choose to bring over information. So then, yes, it shows a lack, or it shows it can show a lack of empathy, but it can also be the way how they choose to. Sometimes people know that when they are harsh, that it's going to hit home to people. Sometimes people know that the other individual who is receiving the information is more sensitive, and they think that if they tell it like it is, that it will build up the person and strengthen them. So again, yes, it is kind of lack of empathy because they're not seeing things from the other person's eyes, but they are still choosing to. They suggest that they can choose not to For example, we have students that, and I can only give an example, but not only, but the first example that comes to me is one relating to minor students. You know, those are immature. And we have students who determine, I'm going to behave one way with one teacher and a totally different way with another teacher, which suggests or says that they know how to. So the one way is being very polite and mannerly. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. The other way is the other way. And but there is something within them that causes them to make that determination that I will be this way with X and this way with Y. Could be something about them that they don't like, something that just something.
Okay. My mother cries every day, or is just very sad because I have joined a new denomination. She feels hurt and blames herself. Do I leave the church and go back to the one she raised me in? I am hurting seeing her hurt, but what do I do? It is 4 months now.
That's a conversation that you need to have with your mother. And I wouldn't say off the top, you know, there are always different options or different solutions to our problems. And we need to be able to explore all the possibilities, all the scenarios. And, you know, it's a conversation. It's a constant conversation. It sounds like there is a matter of rejection your mother may feel. So if she's crying, obviously she's hurting. She's going through her own feelings and emotions based on her perspective of this situation and scenario and your life decision. And it's a conversation to have with her where you are open but gentle, where you are truthful, and but it doesn't mean that she will see things from your perspective, but you just give her your perspective and allow her to make that decision, but you do it all in love, in a spirit of love. You let her know that because you are no longer in the same denomination as she is, that it doesn't diminish or lessen your love for her or lessen the attention that you will give to her or lessen the opportunities that you will have to share in a spiritual realm with her. Because you are no longer in the same denomination doesn't mean that you don't have commonalities, similarities. So you find that way to bond, to be able to work together, and you let her see that there's more that unite you than divide. And in that way, you never know, you may be winning a soul.
That's good, Sherry. Are suicidal thoughts an indicator of poor emotional well-being? How do I get rid of them outside of dying?
Yes, suicidal thoughts are never good. So,
oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Sherry, I read that question wrong. Let me read it again for you. Are suicidal thoughts an indicator of poor emotional well-being? How do I get rid of them outside of dying?
Right, so that's what you said just now.
Oh.
Yeah, so you were correct on the first thing. Any negative thought and this is an extreme, is an indication of poor emotional well-being, poor emotional health. And therefore it means that there is something that must be put in check in terms of the person. And again, this is not a one word conversation or one word solution. And just like you would have, those feelings would not have come on overnight. And they, in some way, they would be festering, and just like how they would be festering and they would not come on overnight, they would not disappear just like that. But because you have reached out to say that you have the thoughts, it means that you are reaching out for help. And because of that, I applaud you. Because of that, I say to you, there are ways in which you can get help. And it could be, and again, it could be with, and it should be with a mental health professional. It can, even if you don't know someone personally, you can ask a close friend, some person that you trust. But especially nowadays, there are so many individuals, so many organizations that are reaching out, because we understand that in these times that we are living in, even the best of us at times have those emotional meltdown. So we implore you to reach out, ask someone. Don't feel ashamed, don't feel embarrassed, don't feel that you should not be feeling this way, and don't cry yourself down. But the mere fact that you reached out says to us that you want help, you want this, you believe that this too shall pass, and you want it to pass, and you want to make sure that when it passes, it is in a positive way, and you can look back. And I'll say this, everything we experience as individuals, we sometimes wonder why, sometimes we say, why me? But then when we look further down, we understand that sometimes we can be used to help others. And we can, our situation, once we have passed it and once we have gone through it, that can help someone else who is facing the same situation as we did. So thanks for reaching out, and please find a way to get help, even if it is leaving your information here and connecting with us, and we can put you on to a mental health professional that can take the time, go through the paces, offer you a therapeutic plan, and help to move you forward.
Thank you, Sister Sherry. Now we want to thank you for joining us this week on Healing Moments. As you can see, our topic of discussion is emotional well-being. Now you know that every month we try to bring you a guest speaker who comes in and talks about the specific topic that we're talking on. Now next Thursday, we're going to have that guest speaker. I won't tell you who that person is. You will have to join us next Thursday to see that person. I want to thank you for joining us, those of you on YouTube and those of you here on Zoom. Thank you, Sister Sherry, for your presentation. And we will look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 6 p.m. for another Healing Moments. Until then, I'm going to leave part of a quote from Sister Sherry, and it says, "Emotions make our lives unique and vibrant." I love that piece. I just love that. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Take a moment for your body. moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care.